Welcome to the Road to Zero podcast. I'm your host, Nick LeBlanc, founder of Network Potential Consulting. We're here to explore the fast emerging zero impact economy, which is transforming the way we do business, bringing prosperity and regenerating the natural world in the process. And I invite you to look at how you can position your business at the forefront of this global movement. Today on the Road to Zero, we're talking to Jonathan Frank, Head of Clean Energy at Vancity Community Investment Bank, joining us from Toronto, Ontario. Welcome, Jonathan, and thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
All right. And I'd like to hear what got you into the clean tech investment, because I know you've had a long history of kind of playing around in clean tech and solar and business. So what was your road to this position?
Well, it was a part of the industry I always found fascinating, and one that I always found to be maybe the biggest sort of mystery. And people always talked about how finance was often this barrier or this gap in the market. And so I was really interested in learning more about tackling that problem, and started doing that in detail with CoPower about 5 years ago.
And tell us a bit of, because Vancity Community Investment Bank is a bit of a new player, that's a national player. So tell us a bit more of how that organization came about and what role you guys are taking on.
Vancity Community Investment Bank, or VCIB for short, is, as you say, a national bank. We're a Schedule I Canadian bank, and we are a subsidiary of Vancity Credit Union. So folks who are listening in BC probably know Vancity quite well. So we are the only Canadian bank that is dedicated to lending to organizations or projects that are having a positive impact on the environment or on the communities they serve. So we are an entirely values-driven bank. We're a member of the Global Alliance for Banking on Values. We're a certified B Corporation. And really everything we do is about the pursuit of positive impact alongside profits.
Yeah, so it's a very distinct creature in the banking world, at least the Canadian banking world.
Yeah, and we're proud of that.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, I bank with Vancity, so I love Vancity, and I love that piece of value driven. It makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
And what do you see as your impact on a low carbon and sustainable future?
Well, really, everything we do is about how to drive a sustainable tomorrow, how to use the tools of finance to create a sustainable tomorrow. So across VCIB, in our various lending departments and banking services department, we have that mission across everything we do. So our commercial real estate lending team focuses on high impact real estate buildings, be that low income housing, arts and culture spaces, heritage buildings, green buildings, community land trusts. Our business lending team focuses on nonprofits and B Corps and impact-oriented businesses, be that clean energy related or sustainable food or other areas. And then our clean energy lending team, of course, we live and breathe clean tech finance every single day, and we're trying to find projects that meet our lending requirements, and in part of that is driving emissions reductions. So we want to see that every project we are supporting does contribute towards a net zero future.
Okay. And how do you mostly do that? Is it mostly really attracting those specific projects that have really that big impact type change? Or are you looking at more traditional projects and really having them go down the road of looking at the values? What tends to happen more?
For our team, we tend to focus on clean energy projects. So we have financed projects like solar, wind, hydro, geo exchange heating and cooling projects, energy efficiency retrofitting, combined heat and power, and energy storage. We're also working on things like electric vehicle fleet conversions and charging. And so we tend to be more on that, newer markets that, I would argue are more traditional, like solar and wind and hydro, been around for a long time, very well established, but also the more cutting edge elements of it where perhaps from a commercial lending perspective, it's a bit more novel, things like battery energy storage, or things like wastewater heat transfer projects. And so these markets we think are, at least some of those are more underserved by mainstream finance, and that's where we can really have an impact. With that said, if a business is looking to, and we see this more often in the energy efficiency retrofitting space, where a building is looking to reduce the emissions profile of their energy system. We certainly have clients that tackle those problems, can come in, can retrofit that building, and use VCIB financing solutions to help make it the most economic solution possible.
Okay, so really you're looking just for that clientele that is making major change, not just a run of the mill, same as normal. You're really just going after the other market. And I guess if someone comes in or they're not part of that market, it's, well, okay, do you want to do energy efficiency? Then maybe we'll look at you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And then what do you find is the rate of return in this type of investment? Because imagine you're not investing in oil and gas and some of the more traditional stuff that a lot of the Canadian banks are fairly heavily invested in. So what have you noticed as your rates of return inside that market compared to some of the more traditional stuff?
Well, I think for the asset owners and the borrowers, the rates of return that they're looking for really do vary quite a bit across the sectors. So in some of the more traditional renewable markets like solar and wind, you're seeing expectations compressed over time as those markets mature. In some of the more modern or newer sectors like energy storage, and even in some cases like energy efficiency retrofitting, you're seeing very high returns for those equity owners, in part because these solutions really do make a lot of economic sense. If you can cut energy costs through clean energy solutions, you can save a lot of money. And if you're a service provider into that market, you can generate quite effective and appealing returns. From a lending perspective, and we are providing debt financing solutions. We're most commonly the senior secured lender to a project. Our lending rates are highly competitive to the market, more broadly speaking, and we're always looking for how do we help support those projects by offering the most competitive rates we can.
That's what I hear is business is very good investing in this sector.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to that. Part of it is, and maybe something that you've talked about before on the podcast, is just the increased flow of capital towards ESG investments more broadly, green products in general. So there's a real demand for that kind of investment. But these projects and these companies do make good economic sense. And so, that's something that we see every day in the projects we're working on and the companies we're supporting, is that these projects are able to both drive environmental benefits and social benefits and economic benefits.
And what are some of the biggest projects you've tackled to date, just to give an idea of like some of the bigger investments and what that looks like?
Yeah, so generally we're providing capital to or loans in the range of 3 to 50 million. We are able to support some smaller projects in that they are aggregated or bundled projects. So one example on that end of the spectrum is, we've provided financing to geo utility companies that provide heating and cooling as a service to subdivisions or condos. Some of those individual projects for residential homes are, $10,000 to $20,000, but we'll do a portfolio of 700 or 800 projects. And then on the other end, you could have a single project that could require up to $50 million or more in financing. Beyond that size range, of course, we're happy to partner with other lenders. And where we're lending to a project, usually we're in the range of 50 to 80% of the capital cost of that project. And so those project sizes can be quite large in some cases. Generally speaking, we're trying to focus on the part of the market that's not as well served by mainstream capital markets or financial institutions, either because the projects are just a bit small for them. Often 100 million is sort of a threshold, sometimes even larger. Or in the case where the technology or the business case might be considered novel, or at least novel in this market, but perhaps well proven in other jurisdictions around the world. And we're happy to roll up our sleeves in those kinds of projects and bring them to life and demonstrate the effectiveness of them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I really hear you guys are a really willing partner, and do you just bring finance, or do you bring other services to bear? I don't know, project management, or maybe just like helping put the project team together, or what do you bring to a project
Yeah,
other
it's a
than
good
just
question.
being?
I mean, the capital is certainly a huge part of it. And there's sort of two elements to that. One is that in any kind of project financing, we are bringing a level of due diligence to a project that we feel provides a service to that project owner or the end customer. So we're going to bring an independent engineering firm to review all the project technicals. We're going to review all the economics of the project. We'll have legal counsel review all of the material project contracts and permits and everything needed to make the project work, as well as something as sort of seemingly mundane as insurance requirements, really, really important. And so we'll have an independent insurance consultant review that project. So that's sort of one bucket, and that's something we do on all of our investments. The other is really, we do have a wide range of partners. We do play within a broader ecosystem, and it's not uncommon that we will help connect the dots between different actors in a given market to bring parties together that can enhance a project, that can fill a gap either within the capital stack. So between the senior lender and the equity, there's often other investors we can help bring into a project, or within the actual sort of technical or project delivery stack, for lack of a better term. So bringing in other groups we know of through past experiences to help, complete that project complement.
Yeah, here you've got quite the ecosystem to really bring someone in and connect them to who they need to connect to get to that next level.
Yeah, and I think that's fairly unique in what we're doing, in that we certainly have deep expertise in certain markets, but the fact that we do lend to such a broad range of types of energy technologies, and do so right across the country, has allowed us to really build up this exciting and powerful ecosystem of partners and players, and that grows every month, and it's really exciting to see what everyone is continuously achieving, and how we can support that with capital or through other means.
And and how does a project connect to that? Is it just call the number up, talk to one of your reps, and hey, this is my project, and then you guys will start to see where they fit into the process?
Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly go to the website and submit a form there that will trigger one of our team members to reach out to you. And it often starts with a phone call, and we just learn more about your organization, your project. We see how we can help. If it's maybe too early, we'll provide some feedback on what we'd like to see to get things kicked off. If it's not a great fit, it's pretty rare we'll just say no. We'll often say, well, here's how it could be a fit, or here's someone that maybe you could reach out to find that fit.
Perfect. And for the investment side of things, where does your capital come from? Who are your investors, and how do people invest inside of this structure?
So we're structured just like any Schedule One bank, and we're regulated by the federal regulators. We're also owned by Vancity Credit Union, and so they're a strong supporter of everything we're doing, especially on the clean energy side, where the credit union itself has made a net zero by 2040 commitment, and so we're looking to collaborate on that. Another interesting element historically was through CoPower. So CoPower, I mentioned, is where I got my start on the finance side of the clean energy market. And historically, CoPower issued green bonds to retail and institutional investors as a unique source of capital, and that's always an option going forward. Um, so, but generally speaking, it's the way a traditional Schedule One bank would be capitalized and then deploying those funds.
Okay. So for example, do you have any mutual funds, or like I'm just looking for the retail investor? How do they kind of get in the game?
Right. Yeah. So VCIB itself is a commercial bank, so retail investors don't currently have opportunities, but certainly commercial entities can can come to us. We have a range of impact deposits and things like GICs, all of which are impact oriented. So we see this quite a bit where, a business that is a B Corp or that is values based, maybe is coming to us for a loan and then pretty quickly sees that they could also do their banking with us and be values aligned. So we certainly can serve both sides of that coin.
And what are some of the projects that you have? I don't know if you can talk about the specifics, but what are some of the projects that you're working on right now that's coming down the pipe that give us an example of the direct impact that's happening?
Yeah, so one that we recently announced is our first battery energy storage project. It's in partnership with STEM, a global leader in battery storage projects and AI machine learning based technology for battery storage deployment. So these projects are exciting. They're behind the meter projects at large industrial facilities that will charge during low energy periods and discharge during high peak demand periods, which is when the electricity grid tends to be the most carbon intensive. So charge when it's cheap and low carbon intensive, discharge when electricity is the most expensive and the most carbon intensive. And in addition to just that sort of basic component, those projects can provide a bunch of ancillary services to the grid around, other sort of capacity requirements, other kinds of, power quality requirements. And, what I think is exciting about that is that, increasing energy storage and the flexibility of the grid will also allow for higher amounts of renewables to go onto the grid to balance that intermittence of things like solar and wind. So we're really excited about that project, planning to do many more like that across the country. We've done quite a bit of work in the geo-exchange space, which is interesting because it's kind of a technology that's been around for a long time and being kind of under the radar. We've seen a real ramp up of geo-exchange in new builds, multi-unit residential buildings, as well as subdivisions. So we'll provide financing to geo-exchange project developers. So think of a solar developer that will sort of site, develop, own, and build a project that's happening in the geo-exchange space as well. So we'll provide that construction financing and in some cases the long-term financing for those projects. And a surprisingly large number of new buildings, even at places like downtown Toronto, a lot of the condo buildings going up are using geo-exchange for heating and cooling. And so there the impact is really direct offset of natural gas for heating and cooling. So that's a pretty big GHG impact. And another project we're working on, which is similar to geo-exchange in the technology, is a wastewater energy transfer project. So we're working with Noventa Energy Partners and Toronto Western Hospital. And this will be the largest wastewater energy transfer project in the world, which is kind of cool to say. And really what the project does is it extracts thermal energy from raw municipal wastewater in the sewer under the streets of Toronto and supplies 90% of the hospital's heating and cooling requirements, which directly reduces carbon emissions, in this case by about 250,000 tons. So really, really high impact, just tapping into the energy right under our feet. And so those are some of the more sort of unique and exciting projects, but we continue to do lots of solar, so community-owned solar, rooftop solar. We've been doing a bunch of work just recently, in particular, around supporting Indigenous ownership of renewable energy projects, something that we're really excited to do more of. And every day it seems like a new lead comes in, something that's high impact, something that's really exciting. So certainly stay tuned to VCIB and you'll see lots of exciting high impact projects coming down the pipe.
That's really exciting. And how big, just to get an idea, how big is VCIB in market capitalization, and how does that compare to the big 10 banks?
Yeah, so we're certainly one of the smaller banks. We're not up there sort of with the big five. I like to think we punch above our weight. The the credit union, our parent company, is the largest credit union in Canada, and one of the largest, if not the largest, BC financial institution. And so, VCIB is still at its earlier days of development. So we're certainly growing fast. The bank itself has been around since 1997 as Citizens Bank of Canada, and it was only in 2017 that Vancity rebranded it as a values-driven bank under the VCIB banner. And so, since 2017, we've been, really launching these sustainable finance products, building out the team with our specialties in real estate, business lending, and clean energy finance.
And where do you see the future going for yourself and for that share, that sustainable market?
Well, certainly the market is growing incredibly fast. So I think there's a bit of right time at the right place, and with the right people and skills and products that will benefit us and the market. We're really excited about the growth we're seeing across all these different clean technology markets, really right across the country. And we really, we want to be the go-to sustainable finance organization. So if you're working on a project that is reducing carbon emissions, we'd love to be your first call, and we've likely got a product and a solution for you. Certainly, as the market grows, we will too. We've never been busier. In the last 5 years, I've been involved in clean energy finance. We've never had more projects on our plate. We've never had so many projects that drive such deep emissions reductions, and so many projects that have such incredible scale up potential. And that's something that we are really focused on. Is there's projects out there that are really great as one-offs, and in some cases that's important. And we're happy to look at those. We're also really excited by projects that have true scale potential. So can this first project become 50 across the country? And, can this $10 million project become a billion of similar projects across the country and beyond? And I think as governments, as corporations, as municipalities across the country and all levels of government really start to really action on these net zero commitments, we're going to see this market continue to grow. And then similar to what we've seen in other clean energy spaces like solar, the cost of these solutions will continue to come down as deployment goes up. And it really becomes a really nice positive feedback loop, a snowball effect.
And it's a trend, and I hear it continuing, that whole growth and more people really tuning into what's going on. And just to get an idea, like I hear your focus. Now, what have you seen from the other banks? Are they starting to get into this market? Are they getting more interested, or has there been movement from them as well towards this direction of financing?
Yeah, I think there's continuous movement towards this direction. A lot of the big banks have been financing some of the more traditional renewables like wind and solar and hydro for a long time now. Canada's pension funds and life cos have been leaders in that space as well. They tend to focus on the very large projects. And so areas around sort of distributed generation have been, I think, underserved. And that's certainly where we can make a huge impact. I think financial institutions of all size are seeing that this is both a market opportunity and an imperative, really. Suite of products that banks are starting to offer across the commercial and retail space is really exciting. Even our credit union parent company, Vancity, has the PlanetWise program for home energy retrofits that have carbon reducing impacts. So that's exciting to see too.
That's great. And what would you like to see in the future? What are you looking for? Who do you want to partner? I definitely heard you're looking for projects, but are you also looking for more investors or more funds? And what would you like to see happening?
Yeah, I mean, we're really looking to grow the ecosystem and grow within that ecosystem. So we're always looking for project developers or end sort of asset owners, be that building owners or infrastructure owners, communities. So we're starting to see more interest from municipalities in particular. So really anyone who's looking to get a project off the ground and is looking for capital solutions to do that, we'd love to hear from them. And then I think there's, really an interesting convergence around these different technologies too that we're starting to get excited about seeing. So if you have, storage plus solar projects is sort of becoming an increasingly common example of that, where in the past that would be considered separate initiatives. We're starting to see that combination, and you're seeing that in the case of buildings too. So an energy retrofit that has water, natural gas, electricity components, and maybe they're also installing some renewables, and they're also installing EV chargers. So those projects that bring together and integrate multiple technologies are really exciting. But if you've got a big solar project or big hydro project, we're interested in those as well. And certainly our other departments and teams around commercial real estate, business lending, banking services, deposits, they're all looking to also support the growth in the ecosystem around values-based organizations. So we're really doors wide open. We're keen to have conversations. We're keen to use those tools of finance to support a sustainable tomorrow. And if that aligns or sort of connects with you, then we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I hear the future is bright and business is good. So thank you very much for sharing what you guys are up to, and acknowledge you for the leadership you guys are really bringing in the Canadian financial market. And it's definitely badly needed. So great to see someone's leading the charge up there.
Yeah, thank you. And we're happy to do that and keen to keep doing it.
Well, thank you for being my guest.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Check us out at www.futureproof-network.com to hear our other episodes, links to our YouTube channel, and to join our Future Proof Business Network. See you again on our next episode.